Hey guys, I am back. I know it's been a while since I did my last video, but I'm back here today after what has just been a crazy few weeks of my life. I've recently changed jobs, and that really has sort of been the main priority in my life recently, just to sort of adjust to this new job, get used to it. So that's why I haven't really had the time to do any sort of video, and I really wanted to sort of do kind of like a roundup video of all the main topics that have been going around in Formula One over the last few weeks that I haven't been able to cover. So that's what today's video really is going to be about. I'm just going to be discussing sort of a few topics, giving my thoughts on them. So going back to when I published my last video at the beginning of January, the news in Formula One was pretty quiet. There wasn't a lot going on, and then all of a sudden the last few weeks everything has just exploded. All of a sudden Formula One is all over the news, whether it's on the national news, whether it's online, whether it's across social media. And it all really started when AlphaTauri announced that they were rebranding to Visa Cash App RBF1 team, which drew a lot of attention and a bit of controversy over social media. And naturally there has been a lot of talk around it. All of a sudden the team that was AlphaTauri, and obviously was Toro Rosso before then, has gone from having an identity to all of a sudden not really having an identity at all. It was a bit of a strange one. Obviously we did know that this sort of thing was going to happen, where there have been a lot of reports and rumours that AlphaTauri would be sponsored by a couple of huge brands, but the name, it's not a good one, is it? It's a very strange one. And the fact that the RB were not allowed, apparently according to Red Bull, it does not stand for Racing Bulls, which was what we were expecting it to be, despite the fact that on the entry list they are classed as Racing Bulls, but the RB in the title name doesn't stand for anything. And obviously there's been a bit of a debate as to what do you call the team. It seems a lot of people have been quite inventive in coming up with VCARB, which obviously is the shorter version of the name, whereas others are calling them RB. Who knows what really people are going to class them as, but all in all, I think this was definitely, out of all of the news that has been going on the last few weeks, definitely the strangest one. But certainly RB, which is what I'm going to call them, are going to be ones to watch this season because of that close alliance that they're going to have with Red Bull, using some of the parts that they've had on their championship winning car that they had in 2023. You saw at the launch, the car looks actually really good. I really do like the livery. There's a few bits here and there on the livery that I don't like. I don't like the white stripe on the nose going into the top of the chassis, but all in all I think the car looks great, and I think they will be certainly ones to watch this year. Then it was just a few days later that we got the news that Charles Leclerc had signed a new contract with Ferrari, although it did not specify for how long for, although it does seem in the reports that it is another 5-year deal, even though in the statement I think Charles Leclerc said he'd signed for several more seasons. But it's quite interesting that they didn't specifically mention how long the contract was for, although as I said, it does seem that it is another 5-year deal, basically the same length of contract that he signed back in 2019. But the difference between this contract and that contract that he signed in 2019 is that it does seem that this contract has a lot more flexibility for both Leclerc and Ferrari in case things don't work out down the line. So I think there are a few clauses in the contract for performance aspects and so on. But this news for me wasn't too much of a surprise. I think Leclerc has made it pretty clear, even when we knew that his previous contract was going to run out at the end of this season, how much driving for Ferrari means to him, how much it would mean to him to become world champion for Ferrari. It's all he ever speaks about really, is how much Ferrari means to him, how much of an honour it is that he is able to represent the brand that is Ferrari, obviously being the most successful team, with such a passionate fan base behind them, that he really enjoys that. He relishes the fact that he's in that position. For me, this was never in doubt. Leclerc was always going to re-sign with Ferrari, even though I think there were a few rumours the last few years was he maybe looking at going to Mercedes. Not a chance for me. I think Ferrari is the perfect place for Leclerc to be because he's sort of building this team around him. But for me, I think it's great to see Leclerc recommitting his future to Ferrari, not just for a few years but for another lengthy period. And I think it's only a matter of time until we see Leclerc and Ferrari back in a position where they're really fighting for the championship. I sort of got a glimpse of how good they can be as a package at the start of 2022 when they made a great start to that particular season. We know he's quick enough. I think he's the quickest driver in Formula 1, certainly over one lap. He's just a bit of a rough diamond at the minute. Fred Vasseur is building that team into a team that can challenge for world championships and certainly victories more regularly in the future. It's an exciting time for Ferrari. So it's going to be interesting to see how that partnership develops over the next few years. And then Leclerc was not the only driver to announce that he had re-signed with his particular team, because Lando Norris also signed a new deal. And unlike Leclerc, for me, this was a bit of a surprise, because we already knew that Lando had a contract with McLaren until the end of 2025. But it's interesting to see that even though he had this contract until the end of 25, there were a lot of reports and rumours going around in the media. You know, he's been linked with Red Bull, particularly during his career. I think he was possibly linked with a move to Ferrari as well. So I think for Lando, he really wanted to show that he is fully behind this McLaren team, given the resurgence that they had in 2023, where they really just turned their season around and had an amazing second half of 2023, where he obviously scored 7 podiums. He had a pole position in the sprint for the sprint race in Brazil. And you can see that McLaren are really looking strong now. They're certainly the strongest they've been in the V6 hybrid era. They look like they can really challenge for victories and championships going forward if this momentum that they've built keeps on building. But I think for Lando himself, he really wanted to put to bed all this speculation, and wanted to show just how much he is committed to McLaren for the future, and that he fully believes that this team is going somewhere and can give him a car that is capable of challenging for victories and world championships. Obviously, we don't specifically know, again, like Leclerc's contract, how long he signed for. It is understood that he has signed until at least the end of 2026, possibly more. I imagine there'll be a few release clauses like Leclerc's contract as well, for performance aspects and so on. So all in all, I think it was maybe a bit of a surprise that Lando felt the need to recommit his future to McLaren by signing another contract. Then on the other side, it's kind of not too much of a surprise, given how much McLaren has improved in terms of form and their performance the last year or so. And to have Lando, who was obviously still developing as a driver, he's getting better, he's still only young. So this is really exciting to see where this partnership really goes in the future. Following on from this, though, we got the news from Formula One that they had decided to reject Andretti's application or bid to enter Formula One in 2026, which was, of course, absolutely disappointing, but not a surprise. I think we all knew that it was always going to be a long shot that Formula One would accept Andretti's entry bid, but still it is so frustrating, and I can see why a lot of people are angry about this, because I just don't see how they can find a reason to explain or justify why Andretti is not good enough to be in Formula One, why they can't bring something to the sport. I mean, that their reasoning, I really think, was poor. The fact that they felt that they wouldn't bring any value, despite the fact that they carry the name of the 1978 world champion, and then he's run by a guy who's been super successful as a driver, particularly over in America. Obviously had a brief stint in Formula One that didn't work out. But nevertheless, Michael Andretti has been super successful as a team boss in taking Andretti, not just over in America in IndyCar, but he's also branched out into Formula E, into Extreme E, all sorts of different series. Formula One really is the last box to tick for Andretti. As I said, the reason that Formula One has rejected them is just pathetic. I really would like to know how they came to the conclusion in their research that they would bring more value to Andretti than Andretti would bring value to Formula One. Surely it can work both ways. Obviously, for me, Andretti coming onto the grid, it's not just a chance to have 2 more seats in Formula One, but it's also a massive missed opportunity from a marketing point of view, because obviously being an American team, Andretti would bring a lot to the sport, and obviously they were planning to also give one of the seats to an American driver. Obviously Logan Sargent's on the grid with Williams at the moment, but to have another American driver would be huge. And we know that Andretti has a big following over America, so we know how much Formula One is thriving off the fact that it is really sort of boomed in America the last few years, particularly thanks to the Netflix Drive to Survive series. So for me, I think Formula One will end up regretting this, even though they have said that they are open to allowing Andretti to enter Formula One in 2028. But the fact that Andretti has gone to such lengths to try and get this entry bid over the line, teaming up with General Motors and Cadillac, announcing their plans to be a fully fledged manufacturer team, designing their own engines, they could not have done any more than they have done. So the fact that they've been rejected really is such a shame, and I think it's a massive missed opportunity for Formula One. Just when we thought it was sort of going to quieten down until launch season began, all of a sudden we were hit with this massive bombshell that Lewis Hamilton was going to join Ferrari. I've got to be honest, I did not see this one coming. Even now, it's still a bit of a shock. The fact that this move is actually happening. Lewis Hamilton is going to be a Ferrari driver in 2025. It's huge. I've got to be honest, I think it is probably the biggest driver move that Formula One has ever had, simply because of the shock factor, the fact that Hamilton already had a contract with Mercedes that he signed last year, a 2-year deal. So all of a sudden hear that he actually has activated a clause in that contract that he signed, that he was allowed to leave the team after 1 year, was again a huge surprise. This is super exciting for Formula One. You know, I think everyone agrees it is going for a bit of a lull. You know, with not much happening in terms of drivers moving teams. All of a sudden, we've got one of the big stars, maybe the biggest star in Formula One still. He is a 7-time world champion after all, deciding to take a massive risk in his career after a couple of difficult seasons where he hasn't won a race for 2 years. He now has decided he wants a change in his career and make a bold move to join Ferrari when they're not in a position to win championships. They are winning the odd race here and there, but with Red Bull's domination at the minute, it is a massive risk once again in Lewis Hamilton's career. But as we know, it has already paid off once. He took the massive gamble that everyone criticised at the time when he decided to leave McLaren and join Mercedes, and look how that turned out. In the end, it has given him an incredible amount of success and has really cemented his legacy as one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. Again, people will be sort of questioning it, criticising it. If it's paid off once, there's no reason why it can't pay off again. It is obviously going to be a tricky one. Ferrari, as I said, are not in any way in a better position than Mercedes in terms of being able to win a world championship, and ultimately that will be what Hamilton is aiming for. It's not just being able to win races again. He wants that 8th world championship badly. It's super exciting. I think this is just what Formula One needed. It's huge. I mean, this was all over the front, not just the back pages, it was all over the front pages. Everyone was talking about it. It was all over the news channels even. We needed this sort of massive shake-up in terms of driver activity and driver moves. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out this year with Hamilton and Mercedes. But for 2025, you know, it'll be obviously the final year of the current regulations before the massive rule changes in 2026. So it gives them a chance to dial in with the team, get to know them, get to understand the car characteristics of the Ferrari, and sort of build this team around him in a way. And of course, it's really exciting that he's going up against Charles Leclerc as well. I mean, that Hamilton and Leclerc as a driver pairing, that's going to be something, that's going to be spicy. It's going to be interesting to see how the dynamic plays out there, because Hamilton is going to have a tough time going up against Leclerc. As I said, Leclerc for me is the fastest driver over 1 lap, so he's going to have a tall order trying to beat Leclerc consistently. It's in the races where Hamilton, I think, will have the upper hand. We know that Leclerc has a tendency every now and again to get a little bit lost in the races. It doesn't have that consistency that he has in qualifying, where he does look, every now and again, it does look like he's not the driver. It looks like a champion in waiting. He has a sort of a messy race or two. But nevertheless, it's going to be really exciting to see how that dynamic develops. And it's either going to work one or two ways for Ferrari, I think. I think either this is going to be an amazing partnership where Hamilton and Leclerc get on really well, but also push one another to new heights, or it's going to end in disaster and it's going to be sort of like a Senna-Prost, Hamilton-Rosberg type relationship. But I think the big thing for me coming from this move is that even if it doesn't pay off for Lewis, it's not the end of the world. You know, he's already had so much success in his career that it doesn't matter if this doesn't turn out how he or we are all expecting it to. But as you know, there are no guarantees in Formula 1. So although on the face of it, it is a massive gamble, it's a final roll of the dice for Lewis to try and win that unprecedented 8th World Championship. If this doesn't end up giving him the 8th World Championship, giving him more wins, more pole positions, at least he can end his career by saying that he did at some point drive for Ferrari in Formula 1. But the main thing for me is that this is hugely exciting for Formula 1, and I'm really excited to see how Lewis gets on when he does end up making that move in 2025. So there you have it. That's my take on some of the major news stories that have been happening in Formula 1 over the last few weeks. But unfortunately, I think this is going to be sort of a regular occurrence where I'm not able to publish as many videos as I would like to, certainly on a consistent basis. I just don't have as much time on my hands as I used to. But nevertheless, this is definitely something I want to continue doing. I do enjoy making YouTube videos and talking about my passion for Formula 1 and covering all sorts of stories and giving my opinions and takes on certain topics. I really do appreciate that you guys enjoy my content. I really do appreciate you tuning in to watch my videos, and It's been amazing the support you've shown me over what has been nearly 12 months since I started my YouTube channel. Hopefully you do understand, and hopefully you will continue to watch my content. But nevertheless, that is it for today's video, guys. Please don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.